You can't heal under a mask, Angela. Wounds need air.
You can't heal under a mask. Wounds need air. I don't think that anyone would have expected that this show, drawn from the source material it's drawn from, would be an airing out of our collective fear and hurt. How would I put it? It's a unique wound that we have as Americans, and it is a wound caused by slavery and every injustice that followed it. And people will put their masks on every day. They used to literally put masks on. They go on the internet and wear the internet as a mask to hide this fear and hurting. And it comes out as anger, and it does make you powerful, and it can make you cruel. But in the end, that's not going to work. What's going to work is air. And I'd like to say, I think this show kind of is that air.
I don't know how to respond to that. I feel like to some degree I'm about to reduce what you said to something less than, but very simply put, there's this thing that drives me nuts in the Harry Potter books, which I adore, which is that Dumbledore, who knows everything and can rescue us.
Does it make you happy? You're so strange. And in your darkest hour, I hold secrets flame. We can watch the world devour in its pain.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Watching Watchmen.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Watchcast of the Watchmen show, where we watch the Watchmen.
Watchmen. We watch it every week.
Yeah. Everyone's doing one, and we did one too, and so we did the Watching Watchmen podcast.
Yeah, but unlike those other shows, we're going to continue. This is not the last episode of Watching Watchmen. We're going to go back. We're going to go back.
There's so much more Watchmen to watch as they, there's what is it, Before Watchmen or whatever the fuck it was called. There's Doomsday Clock. There is so much more exploiting of this very valuable IP that we're going to continue to also exploit.
I think and we're going to do an episode on The Boys too. For people, some people have said that The Boys is the good version of The Watchmen, a TV show, but we're in the positive part of our podcast, so I'm not going to say that right now again.
Yeah,
but yeah. So look forward to that. So this is not the last episode. Keep it rolling with us. And wow, the last episode,
over.
Jack, we made it. We made it to the end.
I want to just say, before we get into any of the whole thing, I know we're going to continue reading the comics in the Watchmen spinoffs and everything like that, but I guess I just want to say that in the sort of aftermath of this, as this series is ending, I just want to beg you, I guess. I want to beg you, sort of as my boss and employer, I just want to be prostrate and on my knees in front of you and beg you, please, that we don't watch the second season of this show if it comes back, which I think it may come back, but I just beg you, sir, to not make me watch another season
Jack,
of this
we have to see
show.
Jack, we have to see the metrics. And speaking of, our sponsor this week, once again, the New Frontiersman magazine. Mm-hmm. They've been telling us that, Struggle Session listeners have been really responding to their work, to their articles.
What I'm thinking, Leslie? What if we got a deal where we could be like the Armand White for the New Frontiersman, What if we could
be the cultural critics for them? I like that. I would like, I didn't think when we started the sponsorship deal that there was a lot of overlap. We were kind of just doing it for the money because, as I said, we were very over budget on the show. But, so far, I've been kind of I really, they've been paying us a lot of money. That's basically it.
The fact of the matter is that, as the weeks have gone on, we like getting paid the money. So we do want to continue the partnership with them. And go check out newfrontiersman.com. They have a whole web subscription thing now, and use code STRUGGLESESH to sign up.
Some great articles. There's a profile of Andrew Sullivan this week. And, he's just asking questions. He's just asking why he can't say it, if they can say it. And that's, kind of the center of the pro. If we can say it, why can't he say it? And, that's the question that you can get answered in New Frontiersman magazine's promo code Struggle Session.
Yes. So go do it.
All right. And today we have a very, very, very special guest. You've all been waiting for him to come on and talk about Watchmen. We cannot talk about anything Alan Moore related without getting his word on it, because as we all have said, he is his personal spokesman. He is the voice of the voice of the snake god in America.
The Pope of Alan Moore, the American Pope for Alan Moore, speaking in his voice when he speaks.
Will Menaker of Chapo Trap House. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I thought I was coming on to implore people not to spoil Rise of Skywalker, though.
Well, we can get through that very quickly. Yeah, don't spoil it for everybody. This is the end of the Skywalker saga. Let everybody experience it on their own.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
I will very briefly just say that there are full spoilers of Rise of Skywalker out there, and they are confirmed. And I actually encourage everybody to go and read the full spoilers to decide whether or not you want to see this film.
You might actually understand the movie if you read the spoilers first. But speaking of things that are incredibly convoluted and hard to understand, Will, we brought you on here because you were one of the few people we know were keeping up with the show, and you were kind of, from what I understand, enjoying it. And so I want to ask you the first question I have asked all the guests on Watching Watchmen so far. What is this show about?
Well, I was hoping to figure it out maybe over the course of this hour. I would just say the closest thing to what this show is about, or what it's actually attempting to do, as best I can understand it, is to basically use a kind of like the thin veneer of this already existing intellectual property that is a much revered sort of cult object or cult mythology in our culture, and basically to create a superhero story, or that was like that's written by just sort of like white liberal TV writers who have read Ta-Nehisi Coates and want to do a version of a comic book story that he would have written, but not a comic book story that he's actually written.
So it's Ta-Nehisi Coates' sort of fanfic by Damon Lindelof. What he thinks that Ta-Nehisi Coates may have written had he been tapped to do the Watchmen TV series.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
I think that's fairly accurate, because Damon has, I mean, even, there's two podcasts that you should listen to about Watchmen. Ours and the official one, where Damon Lindelof and Craig Mazin congratulate each other on their awful storytelling techniques. And one of the
Mazin did a lot of passes on the scripts. Like, he sort of helped Damon find this thing. So they do a podcast talking about how good a job they did.
Wait, I had no idea Mazin was involved in this show.
Yes, Mazin helped he said in stuff that he's like helped with do a pass on the script and stuff like that, and helped Damon sort of develop the story Bible. And yes, he hosts the official podcast basically with Damon every week.
Okay.
Where they talk explicitly, where they say explicitly what the themes are of the show, which are bad, of course.
No, but I mean, I think it's like, like I said, I did not find the show as violently repellent as you guys did, despite it, basically being a travesty of, Mr. Moore, my, benefactor's original vision, which I guess, ultimately didn't really bother me all that much. I just think it's like, this show is like, for better or worse, and you guys can fill it in here. This is like what you would get if someone like Damon Lindelof and Craig Mazin decided to be like, you know what, we're going to use superheroes to like really just talk about, white supremacy in American culture, or like we're really going to delve into and deal with that issue, despite not really having done the reading.
Yeah.
Or doing it in a kind of superficial way. I don't know. But, the elements of the show I did like, but I didn't know if it really like went anywhere. It was like, I did like the sort of switch from the original Watchmen universe of like Richard Nixon's kind of, fascist dystopia to Robert Redford's liberal tyranny. I thought they could have done more with that, but like I never really quite got whether they were saying that was good or bad, and when it was really making fun of like what would happen if you gave liberals like dictatorial control over everything, I thought the show was kind of at its funniest.
Sure.
Or at its most clever, like the racism detector pod, the trigger warning, like the 15-minute trigger warning before the superhero show within a show. But yeah, like the question of what is the show actually saying? It's that white supremacy is bad and a part of America.
I also think that what it's saying is you have to look at this thing in the perspective of like it exists in this world that we're in right now where everything is an assignment by, you know, a mercenary screenwriter ostensibly, like has been an assignment by like the phone company to reinvigorate a work that has already existed. And so I'm like, I think you actually have to also look at it from this lens of like everything in it is a weird sort of like remix or reflection of what happened in Watchmen. And, you know, that's actually for me, like where I think the show, you know, if you're comparing it to the original work. Now look, like, could I watch this show week to week and like sort of like seeing the imagery of Watchmen and like enjoy the performances of Regina King and, you know, enjoy the, you know, I don't even mind the like sort of take on Adrian Veidt and the performance of Adrian Veidt and everything like that. But as far as a sequel to the original work that like actually sort of like works or comports with the themes of the original work, I actually think that the 30 years of liberal control is like an example of something that like doesn't quite work. That is just this sort of like Damon thing of like, well, here's what happened in the original, so I'm going to sort of do like an opposite take on that, which is like, you know, I actually think that in the original work, it's like Alan Moore's thinking about what it would actually mean to have these sort of costumed, you know, right-wing vigilantes out there in the world. And his thought was like, well, that would lead to like a 30-year supermajority where Nixon can't be ousted as president. Damon looked at that and was like, well, wouldn't it be interesting if the opposite happened? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, like, I guess spoiler alert, now that we're talking about like the final episode here is that I guess it really just was sort of all building to God is a black woman.
Yes.
And like I think that's basically where they're, but not only that, and I'm sure you guys must have loved this. Not only is God a black woman, it's now the most powerful cop in the universe.
Yes, a torturer cop who actually does, who constantly is able to glean real useful information by using torture. It is like, yeah, the new sort of kinder God. That's even in the like in the reviews and criticism of this that I think like this show. They're like, you know, this show imagines a world where like somebody who actually had more kindness maybe becomes a god. And I'm like, I don't know, because everybody in the first episode was telling me this show was like negative about cops because it showed this person, you know, torturing someone. So I don't know what the fuck.
Well,
this show is
torturing a
supposed to
white
mean.
supremacist who she got accurate information from. And I just want to say for the record, this show's still pro cop. Like 100%.
Yeah.
The last scene where we see the cops, they take their masks off. And if you know anything about Damon, and if you watch the show, you know that that is the sign that you're now a good person when you take your mask off because you're giving your pain air to heal. It is the most patronizing, goofy fucking shit ever because in Damon said this explicitly, this is how he thinks Black people need to address their trauma. That our anger is our mask, is our superhero mask. And if we don't take it off, we will never heal. So Black people have to stop being so angry. We need to learn, we need to air out all our trauma in the open, meaning we have to tell dipshit liberals like Damon Lindelof, who did not know about any of this until he read Ta-Nehisi Coates. And
was told to read Ta-Nehisi Coates and then read Ta-Nehisi Coates.
I thought like the first episode, the pilot was actually very good. And actually like my overall theory about the show is it got way more uneven, and like the less I heard that like really cool synthy Trent Reznor score throughout the show, the less I was into it. And you heard a lot of that in the first episode. Sure. And I thought that was really, really fucking good. But yeah, like the you know, Lindelof or the writers or whatever, they're like, they were just like, you guys, we just read about the Black Wall Street massacre, and like that shit was fucked up. So like, I think more people need to know about this, through the guise of this TV show. But I don't know. I thought opening it, with that the Black Wall Street massacre and setting it in Tulsa was interesting, and I was like, I was with it very much so in the first episode.
Yeah, but the thing about, that opening up in Black Wall Street is like they don't actually do anything with it. His only idea
No,
was
not
that
really.
it was Black Wall Street. Wow, that sounds a lot like Krypton. So wouldn't that be cool if that was a superhero origin story? And that's all he really has to say about Black Wall Street, other than in saying that this real massacre that happened to real black people was done by his phony Cyclops conspiracy group, which we find out in the final episode, they're the ones who did the Black Wall Street massacre, which our former guest of the show, Kurt Schiller, said is probably one of the most irresponsible things you can do, to say like you're fake super villains are the ones who do the real life
the 23 white supremacists that are like in like overseeing all the white supremacy in Tulsa and America.
That's not saying anything about racism or trauma or violence in the real world to blame it on like Hydra, right? Like,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's actually the same complaint I have about like Captain America, the First Avenger, is that like this is a movie that takes place in World War II, and they're like, who's really evil, more evil even than the Nazis, like Hydra. I'm like, no, that's fucking stupid, actually. And I don't know, for that kind of exact same thing to happen in a Watchmen is very silly. I'd like you both to look at, by the way, I just sent this in the chat here for our little page. Someone just sent this to me. I hadn't seen this before, but this is on the Atlantic's Rethink, and it says at the top, created by the Atlantic's marketing team and paid for by Watchmen on HBO. And it's a graphic novelization of the Tulsa, the Black Wall Street massacre. So I don't know. I'm like, I think it is interesting to like, portray the Black Wall Street massacre. And, it is very interesting that everyone was like, this is how I found out about it. But I'm like, I don't know. Then HBO should do a documentary about Black Wall Street. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, just to sort of like use it as material for a superhero television show and not have much to say about it beyond that does feel a little bit weird and exploitative in the end result.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like like this is done by people like there are elements in here that are I thought were clever or had like a germ of something that's playing with something interesting, like the fact that the interesting thing about Watchmen is this kind of alternate history of America that, and like sort of gaming that out, I thought was interesting. But opening with the Black Wall Street massacre, and like so many people who watched that show were just like, is this some alternate history of America? Right. And Devin would be like, well, no, this is the actual 100% real history of America, right, beginning with it. I thought was interesting. And I also thought the sort of like Black Superman Krypton narrative was pretty clever. But the problem is, it's like, even if the writers that are talented, I think they can only take us so far because they are essentially just libs. And so they're never going to push it. Like it's of course it's going to resolve itself. Like you said, Leslie, in some way that's just about how, black people need to take off the mask of their anger and suffering and just, I don't know, just like, make every, and not only that, but like take care of the planet and the world in the way that like, the other god should have done, which is, another kind of, I guess this is the thing I picked up on, was like the whole Dr. Manhattan thing, where it's just like, he really should have done more. And I think the thing is with like that character, and what Moore shows so well in the original book, is that like, he goes to Mars, or I guess Europa now on the TV series, and creates his own like kind of universe there. Because like he, as a god, everyone wants something from him. Everyone wants something different from him. And every time he tries to do what people want or expect of him, he, either, does a genocide in Southeast Asia, or it's never good enough. He
apologized for that, by the way. He said, my bad in this series.
And, like, what I like about, like,
a deep understanding. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But, that like, in the mind of someone who experiences time and reality as Dr. Manhattan was, like, you do become totally alienated from humanity. And then I think I think logically realize that any attempt to help people or, fix these intractable problems of the world will ultimately, it's like a monkey's paw wish. You'll get what you wish for, but in like the worst way imaginable. That like being involved in humanity, like you can't ever really help them. And actually the most moral choice is to completely disengage, like the clockmaker universe, like that conception of God, that it's just been set in motion by a supreme intelligence, but really one that has no feelings or interaction whatsoever with what it's created. And what the show is basically saying is that like we just need a better Dr. Manhattan.
Well, the show likes Dr. Manhattan. It doesn't pick up on the fact that he's completely inhumane and one of like the worst characters in the original comic.
No, he's
book.
an excellent lover. He's an excellent lover.
Excellent father.
A great father.
Great guy. All around great guy who, even though he's ultra powerful, he allows the redneck yokels to capture and kill him for no particular fucking reason. Like it did. Like I guess we can get into.
Well,
it.
because of plot, it has to happen because of the plot. Like as so many things in the show has to happen. Just because
there's so many things like that. There's so many things like that. But I guess like if I had to justify it, it would be like he allows himself to be captured and destroyed purely to allow Angela to sort of inherit his mantle through the egg or whatever.
He could have came on that egg like earlier, like when they first got together. Instead of him giving up his powers, why didn't he just jizz on the egg like as soon as they met and be like, here you go?
Also, the other thing I don't really get is like, why does he walk into that bar? Like, what is it about Angela that he's so into? Like, it like, all I could think of is that like, like he's just horned up and like he just wants to sleep with a black woman this time, I guess.
It's really strange. Like this show, I guess it's like Dr. Manhattan was on Europa until he became horny once again, and that's what sort of kicked off all the events of the new series.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so let's get into it. So we do try to stick to the format of the good, the bad, and the Lindelof, where we're reviewing the show. Just focusing on the finale.
Okay.
Finale. What was good about this finale?
Okay, well, I'll say what I liked about it, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I really liked Jeremy Irons as Adrian Veidt, even though he was played it as a very like a goofy character. But I really liked what they did with Jeremy Irons and Adrian Veidt.
I like Jeremy Irons playing Jeremy Irons.
Yes, exactly. I just want to see Jeremy Irons on screen. I think he's great when he's chewing scenery.
Yeah.
I liked the revelation. This is funny though. I liked the revelation that Lady True is his daughter, and the whole line where he's just like, he's like, I've never given myself to a woman. It distracts from the, greater virtues. And it's just like, okay, if that's the case, why does he have a whole freezer full of his cum behind a painting in his office? Then? What was he planning on doing with that?
Look, looking at this from like an actual like writing perspective or whatever, like they're like, we need to reveal how Lady True is his daughter. And so like, within 2 dialogue lines, she's like, I came from the sperm that is literally behind you right now. And somebody snuck out with it. This is not set up. It's only set up like in that line. I don't know. Like, why can't it just be that like Adrian Veidt like slept with somebody? You know what I mean?
We missed that line about him being Volsale. Like
it's this bizarre explanation about like his housekeeper got into a secret safe behind a painting, injected herself with cum, which is what the show says. I'm using the terminology of the show. Injected herself with cum, then escaped from his like Antarctic base, like during the events of 1985 Watchmen. But Okie dokie.
Yeah, oh yeah. I guess he didn't notice that she escaped because he did kill all those guys because they were the ones who knew his secret plan.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he recorded a video explaining his secret plan
to everybody,
to everyone, basically.
And that plan—that's how the white
that's
supremacists
sort of
know
that's a little
about
that's
it.
a little self-defeating.
And what they actually are most pissed off about is that he made Robert Redford president for 30 years. Like, they're mad at this video where he talks about how he knew that this would lead to Robert Redford becoming president, and that's like also what kicked off this entire thing. Like, Dr. Manhattan got horny.
I'll tell you,
Adrian
in
Veidt's
terms of,
housekeeper injected herself with cum right after Adrian Veidt made a video that Congress got their hands on where he admits to the entire squid attack. And that really is the core of how all the events in this, kicked off.
Jack, you know what that is?
What?
That's a thermodynamic miracle.
So, for some reason, one of the mysteries we needed to solve was how Lady True was born, and it could not be. And I guess I did like the line where he's like, having sex is too distracting, because I'm like, well, I mean, I agree with that, of course, but like,
I mean, it's true, obviously.
It is true, obviously, but it is a weird mystery to set up for yourself and then also resolve yourself by saying, that there was a secret safe of cum in the room that they're standing in right now, right behind Adrian Veidt at this moment, that her mother, who was a housekeeper, stole and injected herself with. They use the term injected with cum. They call it cum, and then she says she injected herself with it. And then I guess that this woman, after injecting herself with Adrian Veidt's cum, then escaped his Antarctic base during the events of Watchmen 1985. And that's one of the sort of foundations this show is built on.
Well, here's the really cool thing that this is the show explaining that Damon Lindelof believes in eugenics.
Yeah,
because
she's smart because he's smart.
He's smart. And Lindelof is big on this. He thinks anything that happens to your parents also happens to you and is passed down through DNA. So Veidt being super smart, that's why that Asian house cleaner stole his seed, because there's no way she could have possibly produced an intelligent daughter herself. She needed to have a white man.
Of course, the entire series, because
it.
this is a modern reimagining of something, from 30 years ago by one of the guys who did Lost, same as Star Wars or whatever. This has to be 100% about legacy and secret parentage and all this kind of shit. And every fucking character in it needs to be secretly parented in a big reveal by one of the original Watchmen.
What was I gonna say? Here's two things that I'm sure Leslie and Jack, as fans of the original Watchmen, you will have appreciated from the finale. Okay, so Lady True, her master plan is revealed that basically, those 7th Cavalry shitheads and the Senator Ted Cruz or whatever, that they were going to try to usurp Dr. Manhattan's powers for themselves, but really they were all along cat's paws in her much larger plan to do the exact same thing for herself. They trap him in that, I don't know, the zinc battery cage or whatever.
Batteries he made apparently can cage him, and the redneck senators know this. But please continue.
So, you'll remember from I think the last chapter of the original Watchmen, where Veidt attempts to kill Dr. Manhattan with an intrinsic field generator.
Yes,
and one of the coolest parts, in the end of that, where Veidt thinks he's won, but then of course Dr. Manhattan just reassembles himself from atoms again. And he says, reassembling myself after from an intrinsic field was the first thing I learned how to do. Why did you think I wouldn't be able to do it again just a second time? So I don't quite know how Lady True actually killed him. Mm-hmm. I guess it's a different kind of laser that they use. But I did appreciate her orb. Just I really liked when the squid hail just shot a fucking hole through her hand, and then her her orb just crashes down on top of her. And again, it was like, yeah, you thought you were smarter than your dad. Guess what? You were wrong. And I did like the scene where she goes to Antarctica to visit him at Karnak, and he's just like, it's like, I don't care how long you've gotten here. I don't talk to fans. And he's like, no, you can't use the bathroom. Please leave. And I did like when she's like, oh, like, I'm the smartest woman in the world and I'm here to ask you for $42 billion. And I like when he just says that whole thing about how when my parents died, I inherited unimaginable wealth and I gave it all away to prove a point. And that's exactly what I'm going to offer you, is nothing. And I got to say, I did like his rescue from Europa by her. And I did like the whole reveal where, like, the statue that you've kept seeing is actually him, like, frozen in carbonite or whatever.
Yeah, well, I think what you're getting at is that, you know, in this last episode, the TV show decided to introduce a couple of characters with actual motivations and like an actual plot that we could follow along clearly. He says, "I'll never call you daughter." He eventually does call her daughter because
he's a fan of Pearl Jam.
Yeah. And then but it's all in like this one episode instead of, I don't know, spread out across 9 episodes where we see these characters and these character development. Lady True ends up being the main villain of this TV show. She's not introduced into episode 4, and we don't really find out whether she's a villain. I've been saying she's the main villain for a while, but we don't really find out that she's the main villain until like halfway through this episode, where Angela just says, actually, Lady True is really bad, so all you white supremacists who are trying to become like get super powered so you can kill all the black people, please do not do this. Save yourselves from this evil Vietnamese woman who wants to undo colonialism. Please team up with me and help me stop this, complete, sociopath who wants to defeat America and American values. At least, I know you guys are super racist, but at least we share a common Americanness that we can, identify with. That's like the art. That's like, just the plot of the show makes no fucking sense. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be the good part.
I know. I did find Lady True credible as a villain, as a sort of like a megalomaniacal, I don't know, tech trillionaire or genius or whatever.
But I think she's right.
I did like the line where Adrian said, anyone who wants to seek to attain the power of a god must be stopped from acquiring it at all costs. And like that to me made sense and was a credible, like sort of explication of why Lady True must not be allowed to become Dr. Manhattan, despite her, I guess maybe, I mean, like, is it really ever spelled out that like what she really wants to do is end colonialism in America, or does she just really just want to just become like a god for everyone and everything?
Well, that you would assume that would be her generational trauma, but the show really doesn't get into it. There's not even a scene, and this really struck me, there's not even a scene where Lady True is like mad at Dr. Manhattan for doing genocide in her country. That just,
Leslie, when I was watching the show, I thought like I was calling that as like, I was like, that's going to be the motivation here. Like when like her child sort of like epigenetic, or child/mother's like epigenetic memories of having her village burned to the ground by this, American walking atom bomb or whatever. I thought like her whole long shot was just going to be like finally killing Dr. Manhattan and getting revenge on him for what he did to his, Southeast Asia.
That's not really the focus of the show. However,
right,
we are done with the Vietnam story and Dr. Manhattan when he says that he was sorry about that. So that is kind of the sort of conclusion of that arc right there. He feels bad about it, and that's the end of that.
So
just like we do as America, and just like liberals like Damon Lindelof does. Like, we said sorry, and at that point, isn't that enough?
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let me ask you guys, like overall, because this was probably like the big reveal, the big twist of the show, is that Angela's husband Cal is Dr. Manhattan, and he doesn't even know it. Only Angela really is aware of it. So like, and then like when he becomes Dr. Manhattan again, like he's still. they like when he walks into the bar, they like hide his face because like John Osterman is not an African American,
Yes.
right? He's a German immigrant, and then when he becomes Dr. Manhattan again, he retains Cal's essential like physical features despite the blue skin. So like I feel like Black Dr. Manhattan. What did you guys make of that?
It's blackface. It's really blackface.
Adrian tells him that, and I thought one of the funnier lines of the show is, and he's like, he was like, "This isn't the '80s anymore, John. This kind of appropriation is a bit iffy nowadays."
But that in itself is just like the show acknowledging that what they chose to do is weird. Like that's the show itself, like reacting to what they were saying to each other in the writers' room, and they'll be like, "Well, let's just have Veidt say it, so we're like aware." And I'm like, "Well, like." But you're commenting on what you did. So like, what the fuck? I don't know. Like, I think it's really, really strange. And I don't know. I don't know that it like has any thematic meaning.
Well, let me say that, you know, he looks awful with that blue makeup and the bald cap on. Like he looks like so much worse than Dr. Manhattan.
I think that there is a weirdness. There's a weirdness to this final episode being like a nude black man, Dr. Manhattan, like caged for the entire episode. Like I don't
white
really
people talk around him.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like I don't know that it is meant to say anything. But it like is really weird imagery. I just found it to be like very strange imagery.
I would say that there's also quite a bit of psychology going on in the writers' room of this show, in that how many specific points in the show and actual frames of it emphasize what a big dick he has.
Yeah, and there's so much talk about Dr. Manhattan's dick.
Yeah, let me quote Rose Gunn, who was a guest on our show. Imagine writing a story about the legacy of racial violence, and the ending is the most powerful black man to ever live, sitting naked in a cage while a much smarter white man saves everyone. Also, you get to see his big dick a bunch. White Catholic sexual pathology in action.
It does strike me as kind of weird. First of all, number one, every follow-up piece of like Watchmen material, whether it's like I mean, I don't know about in Before Watchmen, but certainly in Doomsday Clock and sort of everything in the sort of surrounding Watchmen spin-off verse is way more obsessed with the fact that you can see Dr. Manhattan's penis than the original work is. And that's just because it's an unusual thing that like Moore did in that work, but he didn't focus on it. It's an element of like what would actually happen if a man with Captain Adam's powers like existed in our real world. Like he wouldn't need clothing anymore. And I don't know.
I would just like to stress as well, in the original Watchmen, it was a completely average, normal penis. You know,
right.
Nothing to, like normal.
This retcons Dr. Manhattan's penis to be huge because the big, gigantic dildo that Laurie Blake, because she now embraces her, because she too is a legacy case and she needs to embrace her legacy, and she became the comedian in the time between the original Watchmen and this. She looks at the giant dildo that I guess Dan Drayberg made for her, using like Faraday shield technology, and it's a big giant dick. Like that's not. Dr. Manhattan didn't have a big giant dick.
Well, actually, it's giant because he's black now, Jack. He's giant because he's black now.
There is a weird, this whole thing, the end of this show ending, with like a caged, most powerful black man in the world, and we see his dick a billion times, is like a very weird, it's like, this is a weird liberal pathology that we're witnessing in this final episode.
For sure. There's quite a bit of psychology going on. I will say about the Night Owl designed Dr. Manhattan dildo. I like that it looked like a Jeff Koons sculpture.
Yes, it does have the kind of glass, animal balloon kind of look to it.
Yeah. And what's the name of the actress who played Silk Spectre?
Jean Smart.
Jean Smart. I mean, I think she's wonderful. I thought she was great. I loved her in Fargo season 2, and she's done a lot of good stuff. And it's like, I mean, the conundrum of this show for me really is, like I said, like I gotta say, like it's fun to talk about all the psychology and bad writing that's going on in the show, but I was pretty much kind of entertained. throughout the entire run of the show, despite its ups and downs. I think it's just an example of like, you know, the reach just vastly exceeding the grasp of what they're attempting to do. But the people involved in it, certainly the actors, are all like very extremely talented. Like I really enjoyed all the performances on the show. I like Regina King was great. I like I said, Jeremy Irons I loved a lot. I really like Tim Blake Nelson. But it's just like it's the reach exceeding the grasp, because like if you're going to try to do a follow up or a reflection or a meditation on, you know, something that is as, you know, such an Olympian feat as the original Watchmen, that's already you're a little too big for your britches
to begin with.
To begin with, you know. So but it's almost like I appreciate their, as dumb as they are, I appreciate the attempt to do it, even if a lot of it is kind of dumb.
I think that, you know, you said that, you know, this makes it complex or something like that. And I actually think that like sort of impression of it, like actually makes it very, very simple to sort of, concisely, see what, to make a conception of the show, which is that, like, Damon Lindelof is not that good. The show Bible and like ideas in the show are not that good. The writing is not that good. But the performances and set decoration and art department and direction is good. This is a common issue with HBO shows. You know what I mean? Like, HBO does do very, very good casting. The last season of Game of Thrones, like if you're, you know, rating it on that very same metric, you would say like, it looks fucking badass. And like, it is like extremely good production value and good casting.
I think, Jack.
I don't know what to tell you.
Those kids are not good actors.
It looks good and that they have good actors in it.
Some of the episodes,
You're right. Sansa didn't grow into it. Sansa did not grow into it. Sansa did not grow into it.
And actually, like the big battles look like dog shit too. Like the Dark Knight. I think you're giving it too much credit.
What I'm saying is that HBO does have a sheen machine, and that they're very good at making shows that have like a basic set of like, you know, a look that is very cinematic and a stable of actors that are like very, you know, well cast. That's like common across all of their shows. And
I don't think so. I think it's too much credit.
I'd be remiss if I also didn't say I really, really liked seeing Lou Gossett Jr. again on anything.
He's good.
He's great. But okay, here's a question for you guys. Here's something that made me go So Will Reeves, aka Hooded Justice, when Dr. Manhattan goes to see him, he's living in the beautifully appointed New York townhouse of his former lover, Captain Metropolis. Given the Hooded Justice's backstory and what we know about that character, it's a little weird he has any kind of like residual affection for Captain Metropolis, considering what an absolute fucking prick he was. And like, I guess like I thought the show was very clear that he was like very much fetishizing him as a black man and a kind of token, and then also completely, I don't know, like fucking him over, or like refusing to help him do the one good thing that he wanted to do.
Yeah, we said on the show earlier, like, so it turns out that if you read Pedia, that was actually the love of his life. And it's just the show not being particularly interested in like anything with any real emotional weight other than the couple of things that Damon is obsessed with. Like you could even have like told that story about like how he was still super racist, but still loved the guy. And, you know, maybe he regretted it in the end, but we don't get any of that on screen. Instead, like the Will character disappears for the last 3 episodes. Like after that big episode completely focusing on him and his religion, we do not see him, him and his origin. We do not see him again until like it's time for him to do some exposition in the very last scene of the show. And just the show is just not interested. The show brings up so many things that are, you know, come back that it never comes back to, like the giant blue dildo. That was the fucking...
Well, no, I mean, like I think that's what I'm getting at. It's like for me at least, the show did bring up, or like it did toy with like a lot of interesting ideas that could have like in I don't know, in better hands could have gone someplace very interesting and satisfying, which it ultimately didn't. But I would say it went somewhere that was kind of like vaguely entertaining to me. Here, just real quick, can I just share? This is my actual nerd fanboy, like Itchy and Scratchy striking the same rib cage and producing the same sound effect
Please,
twice.
please.
This actually annoyed me about the final episode. In the final episode, they actually show Adrian do his amazing bullet catching trick, right? Which is awesome. I really like the scene at the end with him with the game warden where he's like, "Was I a worthy adversary?" And he's like, "No, but
Yeah,
at least
I
you're
didn't mind
entertaining."
Look, we know that whole sequence was shot like ahead of time and everything like that. And I'm like, as a weird, if there was just a weird little short film about Jeremy Irons playing Adrian Veidt, I'm like, this is a fine little weird short movie or something like that,
Okay.
But yeah.
But again, like, going from the source material, what do we know about Ozymandias Adrian Veidt? We know it takes a while in the comic for you to get like an impression of it, but once you do, it's unmistakable. He fucking handles comedian with no problem.
Yeah.
Fucking just murks his ass, tosses him out of a 30-floor window with no problem. And like comedian's like, the toughest, most badass guy. And then when Night Owl and Rorschach finally get to Karnak and like attempt to do anything to him, he fucking just like, there's absolutely no match whatsoever. Because like, not only is he the smartest man alive, he's the most physically adept human being alive as well. He caught a fucking bullet before it hit him. So what does this show do at the very end? He just gets mollywopped with a wrench from behind by some shithead Oklahoma cop who's just like, that guy talks too much. Or it's just like, come on. He would have fucking... Looking Glass couldn't sneak up on him like that. Come on, I don't care how old he is.
Yeah, he would have
he would have fucking just put two fingers straight through his jugular or something like that. Like,
yeah, it's completely, because people like will say like, oh, it's unfair to compare it to the comic book. This is a sequel to the fucking comic book. I don't know what you want me to say. We don't find out enough about a lot of these characters to really get an idea of who they are. We have to reference the comic book to figure it out. And when the show takes Dr. Manhattan and instead of him being this completely detached monster living weapon, he's like just this really caring guy and a good boyfriend who suddenly likes women who are of age for this show instead of in the comic book. Well, whatever. Or when, Adrian Veidt used to be, was this kind of brilliant but kind of quiet, villain. And instead he's just like this literally a cartoon character, literally a Looney Tunes cartoon character. Even though there's some entertaining stuff there, that's not the same Veidt that we know from the comic. When Laurie Blake, who goes from, Laurie Blake, I'm sorry for even calling her a day, Laurie Giuseppe goes from being this person who's just kind of sick of the superhero stuff, was kind of pushed into it and didn't really understand it, to being just this, really kind of awful, snarky person who hates everyone and everything. And by the way, spends the last 3 episodes tied to a chair,
yeah.
which Damon himself, he said, well, what I wanted to do with this show was, give Laurie more of a character because she kind of moves into the background in the comic book.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on. I mean, that's another, look, you don't get to have it all ways. Like, do the Watchmen thing. You got the assignment from AT&T to do Watchmen, and it's fun. Get everybody to do a big, high-budget Watchmen show. It's all good. You have to also go out there on your podcast and be like Alan Moore doesn't write good women characters, and I'm correcting that. Like, what? Like, why do you have to be that way?
Leslie, why
do you have to be that way?
Didn't you say on the official Watchmen creator cast or whatever, Lindelof said that the original comic reveres superheroes?
Yes. Yeah. I'll quote him completely because some of his defenders have gotten mad at me. What he says was the comic both trolls and reveres superheroes, which is saying he thinks it reveres them. And also, it doesn't troll them. It eviscerates the entire concept of superheroes.
I mean, I guess I could say like that. Maybe like there's a germ of something there in that, like, when I was on with you guys talking about Watchmen the comic, I mean, I maybe like in some sense you revere superheroes in that it creates so many memorable, good superhero characters and like a superhero story. But yes, in the service of eviscerating the entire idea of them to begin with.
Yeah, and he fundamentally does not understand the Watchmen comic, and he really doesn't understand. Like, the problem with this show is ultimately that the fundamental question that's asked before they do anything is Damon coming up with an idea and asking, wouldn't it be cool if the first superhero was a black guy? Wouldn't it be cool if Dr. Manhattan was black and had a super big dick? Wouldn't it be cool if? That's not the question you ask when you're trying to tell like a coherent story. That's just like your weird, bizarre fan service fantasy.
Yeah.
What you want to ask, the kind of questions you want to ask is, who is the main character? What do they want? How are they going to get it? What's going to stop them from getting it? Now that's, save the cat shit, but that's better than just like tossing every idea that pops into your head out there and then basically committing it to screen unfiltered, because what you end up happening is you have no follow through, you have no commitment, you never follow up on what does the Tulsa Massacre actually mean to the show. What did those flyers that he had, that flyer they had from Germany from World War One?
That's a real flyer, by the way. That's the things they did. Like again, like that were interesting is like those little like glimpses of like real history that they were weaving into it, like that actual leaflet that American servicemen were leafleted with during World War One, and shit, even in World War Two, the American military was still segregated, and like the question of why are you? And keep in mind, World War One, again, like for the dum-dums writing this show, they probably just thought like, oh yeah, they're like the Germans were like the Nazis, right? And it was just like, well, there was no good side in World War One, but that leaflet was 100% correct. Like, why are you fighting for this country again? Like, you realize like if the Kaiser ruled America, like how much better off your life would be.
That was also foreshadowing, I guess, the like plan by Cyclops in the 6th episode to like make black people fight each other with mind control or something like that. Like, is all. Is all.
Yeah, the racial politics of this show come from, again, a white guy who even to this day says, I don't really think I was the person to tell this story. That's literally like it. Like he literally still admits that, and he says like, "Oh yeah, I really leaned on my writer's room to stop me from giving some of my even worse ideas on the screen." Because he had a lot of black writers in the room, 2 of which tried to get fired from the show because they were so upset by the portrayal of the police in this and thought it was like a Blue Lives Matter show, which it kind of ended up being. Well,
was it Cord Jefferson who wrote the Hooded Justice?
Yeah, the best episode.
Flashback episode.
And, yeah. And shout out to Cord. That was by far the best episode. I think you liked your best.
I thought that episode was good too.
Look, as an individual piece, I do think it's good. I mean, like, I don't think it's very thoughtful to sort of re-envision Hooded Justice. I think that on the larger macro scale, that's like a sort of wrong-headed thing to do. But as like a single episode unto itself, I'm like, I don't mind the idea of like that as an origin story and killing all those white supremacists. Like, that was a fun episode to watch.
Yeah, no, like that was a satisfying hour of television, especially when he killed all those cops. Right. Oh, and again, when we were watching the final episode, and like they're all converging on that the square in Tulsa, which is like, by the way, one of the things you could do, doing a response to a sequel, a recreation of the Watchmen, is attempt to mirror or reflect what Moore and Gibbons do in the comic, which is this kind of mirroring of both themes, images, and and plot devices throughout it in this perfectly constructed way. They took a very half-hearted stab at doing that on the show, but basically all they could really end up doing as far as the reflections is just one location of that it begins and ends in the same place and kind of takes you back there at a few different points throughout history, in that the Dreamland Theater and the square that was the center of Black Wall Street. So at the end of the show, all the cops and everyone is just converging on this square right before Adrian's squid hail annihilates everything. And I was rubbing my hands together. I was like, oh boy, we're going to see a cop holocaust now. And then it was just no, they were mostly okay.
Fine. They were fine. Even though,
fine.
Very focused on pretty much just Lady True.
Yeah. No,
mostly.
she gets that golf ball size hole through her hand, and I was like, oh boy, all right,
the stigmata,
come on.
the stigmata that we see as we have that split shot, that split focus shot where like Jesus is on the cross and and her face where she's trying to turn herself into Manhattan, like just amazing, very subtle symbology right there, like I love how people to defend the show have attacked and mocked Zack Snyder when Zack Snyder did that exact same shot in Man of Steel already, and it looked a lot better. All right, so I think we have talked enough about this finale of the show. Will, I'm very happy to finally have somebody who kind of digs the show in a way that makes sense and is sane and is not trying to convince the world.
The idea that this show, ultimately, it took a stab at, like I said, its reach vastly exceeded its grasp. The things it was trying to take a stab at, I think are worthwhile. It's just, they didn't quite have enough sense to do something really satisfying or meaningful. But yeah, white TV critics who are falling over themselves to talk about how important and we need this show right now. That's a little too much for me. I'm not gonna go that far. But as 9 or 10 episodes of television, I was it kept me entertained, and I don't know if they're going to do a second season or not, but what I would hope they would do with it is because I don't know where they could go with it after this finale. It'd be, I don't know, you could do a second season about what does Angela do now that she's God? But I think it would be kind of cool if they just did a second season and just sort of did it as an anthology season and just give it to a new creator every season and just be just do what you want with this, but just, I don't know, give it to someone else and let them, I don't know, examine this universe from a different angle or tell a different storyline that's happening. Let's find out, what happened to Night Owl or something. I don't know. But give it to a different showrunner, a different writer's room, and just let them take a crack at the same universe from a different angle and see what happens. So and not having to do a continuation of this plot or be too precious with it, or even be too precious with the original material. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with you in the general sense that it's these are good actors, and I think that these are some of the world's greatest set designers and visual artists, being set on Watchmen, and that did create some things that I like to see and some moments that were fun to watch. But as far as a continuation of the original work, either in plot or themes or anything, I do think it fails on every level. And I guess for what it's worth, in the end, this is just going to be one of the options on the page when you go to the HBO Max Watchmen landing page. And so I guess in the final result, I would just recommend watching the motion comic. Watch the motion comic of Watchmen if you're going to watch something on that streaming service. You can watch this one too.
No, Jack. Do not watch this show if you haven't. I want to thank all the people who have listened to Watching Watchmen, who have watched this show because they felt obligated because we were doing a podcast about it. I am sorry. This was a terrible experience for me. I'm sure it was a terrible experience for a lot of you. For the people who listen to the show without actually watching the show, good job. Good job. Don't be tempted. Do not watch Watchmen. Do not go back and watch The Leftovers. Don't listen to anyone who tells you Leftovers is good. They are trying to trick you. Lost is also bad. Anything he has ever done is retroactively canceled because of how bad this attempt was, in my opinion. But I'm glad that we were able to enjoy this awful show together in whatever way we've chosen to. And I thank you so much for being with us on this journey of watching Watchmen, which will continue on to some of the awful comics, prequels and sequels of Watchmen. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, folks. That was Watching Watchmen. See you next week.
Bye, everybody. See ya.